So we're adding unlike fractions, and we're going to add 2/5 plus 1/10. Right away you can see that your denominators are not equivalent, so we have to do a little bit of work to change them while still maintaining equivalent fractions. So I'm going to off to the side make a little t-chart with the denominators 5 and 10. Always start with the smallest number, and this is finding our least common multiple. You want to find the smallest multiple that these two denominators have in common. So start listing your multiples, and you can stop if you get to one of the other numbers. So for instance, we're going to do 5, 10, you can really go up to 15, 20, but 10 is already right here, which is the denominator of the other fraction. So now you have 10 is going to be our common multiple. So we're going to change, we have to change our fractions. Change fractions. 2/5 is going to need to change to a fraction with 10 in the denominator. And 1/10 doesn't need to change to anything with 10 in the denominator because 10 is already in the denominator. So we're just going to put it there as is. 1/10 equals 1/10. So to recap, we have our problem. We find our least common multiple if the fractions are different. And then we have to change the fraction. So then we have to see, how do we get from 5 to 10? We multiply by 2. Whatever you multiply by in the denominator, you also have to do in the numerator to keep the fraction equivalent, because it's the same. That's like multiplying 2 over 2. So you have 4/10 there. Now you have your new fractions with the same denominators. So we are going to add this 4/10 plus 1/10. So you're going to add 4/10 plus 1/10, and you will get 5/10. Now, you can leave your answer as that, but it's not in simplest form. 5/10 can be simplified, or I don't like saying reduced, but both 5 and 10 can be divided by 5. So dividing it by 5 over 5 would give us 1/2, which makes sense because 5 is half of 10 and 1 is half of 2. Our next example is going to be 1/4 plus 1/2, and right away you can see that 4 and 2 are different denominators. So we're going to make our little chart to find the LCM, or least common multiple. So over here, I'm just going to write LCM for least common multiple. That means we're finding the smallest number that 4 and 2 have in common. And once you get used to this, you'll be able to see right away. Start with a smaller number, 2, then 4, then 6, but we already hit 4. So they have 4 in common, which makes it nice because this fraction right here is already done for us. So we're going to come down here under our least, this is going to be our work side. And we're going to write out our fractions. We have 1/2 needs to change into something with 4 in the denominator, and then 1/4 will need to change to something with 4 in the denominator. We are lucky because it's already done for us. So then we have to think, how do you get from 2 to 4? You multiply by 2, and whatever you do at the bottom or denominator of a fraction, you have to do the top so that they stay equivalent. 1 times 2 is 2. So these are now your new fractions, 2/4 and 1/4. So you can do, we're going to come back over here to our problem side and go 2/4 plus 1/4, and we have 3/4. And this is what's called a back-to-back fraction. The numerator is just 1 away from the denominator, so that is already in simplest terms. So that one is done. So right away, we're going to look at our fractions, 3/14 and 1/3 plus 1/3. 14 and 3 are unlike denominators, so we need to find the least common multiple. There are a couple ways to find the least common multiple. One is by making a list. So we're going to make a list of our multiples of 3 and 14. And this one is going to be a little messier and a little trickier than the last one because you can count by threes and not get to 14. So we're going to have to do a little more work. So we're going to go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Still have nothing in common there. So we're going to keep going. 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, and we're going to stop there and start our 14s. 14 plus 14 is 28. 28 plus 14 more is 42. And honestly, that's that is going to be our least common multiple because that's the first number that we get to that those two denominators have in common. So that's going to make our problem a little different than the other ones because now we have to change both fractions. So over in our work area, we're going to call this side our work side. We have 3/14 that we have to change to a denominator of 42. And we also have 1/3 that we have to change to a fraction with a denominator of 42. So for 14s, you can just count your multiples. It's 1, 2, 3 multiples away. So that means 14 times 3 is 42. And whatever you do to the denominator, you must do to the numerator so that the fractions are equivalent. 3 times 3 is 9. So our new fraction that's equivalent to 3/14 is 9 42. Now for the 3 to 42, we can count our multiples here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 3 times 14 is 42. So we're going to do times 14. That means we have to multiply the numerator by 14 to make the fraction equivalent. 1 times 14 is 14. So that is those are our new fractions now that we're going to add together for our problem. 9 42 plus 14 42. So let's write that over on our problem side. Denominator stays the same when you add fractions because your pieces are now in 42, and 9 plus 14 is 23. So 23 over 42 is our answer. For numbers, when you have something as big as 14 and 3 and they don't seem to have anything in common, a very quick way you can find the least common multiple, or actually sometimes it's not going to be the least common multiple, but it will be a common multiple, is by multiplying your denominators together. So I'm going to put this down at the bottom because it's an alternate strategy. And again, this is not to find the least common multiple. This is just finding a common multiple. Find common multiples by multiplying the denominator. So we're going to multiply our 14 times 3, and you get 42. So you still get 42 like we got up at the top. This time it did work out to where these numbers are this is your least common multiple, but that will not always be the case. So if you get that number, if you multiply your two denominators together and you get a larger number, then you're going to have to do more simplifying at the end. So it just depends on what works better for you. If the least common multiple works better for you, where there's very little simplifying, then I would do that. Or if you like multiplying first and then simplifying at the end, that would be fine too. The last problem we're going to do is 1/2 plus 3/16. These two do not have the same denominators, so we're going to go ahead and make our chart. On our work side, we're going to do 2 and 16 because those are our denominators. We're going to start with our small number, our smaller denominator, and see if we can get to 16. And knowing that 16 is an even number, we are going to be able to get there. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So 16 is our least common multiple. So we're going to go ahead and change our fractions. 1/2 equals something over 16, and 3/16 we're going to leave the same because 16 is already the denominator. All right, so how many 2's get us to 16? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. That means we have to multiply by 8 in the numerator. 1 times 8 is 8. So these are now our two new fractions that we're going to be adding together. 8/16 plus 3/16. 8/16 plus 3/16. And our answer is, denominator stays the same, 11/16. Now, the other way we can do that is finding a common multiple by multiplying the denominators, where I'm going to write CM for common multiple by multiplying 2 times 16, which is 32. That's going to make things a little different. So we'll have to do 1/2 equals something over 32, and 3/16 equals something over 32. 2 times 16 is 32. 1 times 16 is 16. 16 to 32 is times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So then you would have to do 16 over 32 plus 6 over 32, and you would get 22 over 32. This answer right here is not in simplest form, so we would need to simplify it by finding the greatest common factor. I know that these are both even numbers, so I can divide them by 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 32 divided by 2 is 16. So you still get the same answer. It really just depends on which way works for you. In my opinion, making that list of common multiples works the best to get your smallest, simplest answer.